insanity. I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Joel Sains. No, this is not a repeat or echo. That's Patrick McCray, author of the Dark Shadows book
I
about.
think at this point I'm not certain.
I know, right? But we're here to discuss episode 1219, which is a lost episode for Dark Shadows. What did you think about this, Patrick?
I thought it was really interesting. I mean, to not stray too far with, mission creep or whatever, because it's the format of this is really the most interesting thing, in a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean it's a bad episode. It's a good episode. And, so I like the novelty of it. I had heard about this occasionally, from my patients who chew gum. And I was sort of curious as to how it would, play out and what all this was going to be about. And I was really very pleasantly pleased.
Yeah, for a lost episode, it's not too terribly lost. I mean, some of the film is lost. That's the key thing. But
Yeah.
The audio is all there.
Yeah.
And I love Laura Parker narrating this episode. But I'll say this. I don't think that her complete narration of the episode, like her leading you into each scene, is really needed. I mean, I'm not knocking that she did it. She does a great job. It's a great setup each time. But for this being a lost episode, I just don't feel that was needed. It's good that it's there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. And I don't want to sound like I am.
No. I know what that sounds like, and I run. It's really it's really an interesting call,
Yeah.
and this brings me into other subjects that I may or may not be germane. They might be really interesting to you, or not. It's going to be one or the other. But there is a fear that exists among a lot of people in the arts that somebody's not gonna get it.
Yeah.
And this is I think a really strange fear. I think that often it comes either from someone who I don't really know. I don't want to make assumptions. But it's a strange fear, and this smacks of that fear. It's like, oh, someone might not understand, if we just put, a little crawl at the beginning of the episode. And you get that a lot. You get that a lot. I get that a lot. And I kind of, I personally react really badly to it, because I grant the audience a good deal of intelligence. I do not underestimate them, because if they don't like it, they'll go someplace else. And okay, great. So they'll be happy. Everybody's happy. And here I really see that was maybe going on. And no one went anywhere else. I think you're right. I do think it's superfluous.
Yeah. It's excuse me. It's really well done. Don't get me wrong. The narration from Laura is really well done. Not just the opening narration, the narration of this episode. What you have here, you have photos and you have the audio dialogue over the line the actors saying their lines. You have the audio over the photos of where the scenes are taking place. It's really well done. It's really well put together. And you have one of my favorite ones that they do is in the drawing room when Catherine collapses and Bramwell and Catherine's sister announce that they are married, which is because again Catherine collapses because we find out in this episode she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's sort of the only really bad thing about it is with it being lost that you don't get that on a film for say, but you get it in photos. But I like the way it's done. It doesn't take you, even though it's done the way it is because of the film being lost, it doesn't take away from it.
I don't think it takes away from it either.
Yeah.
I think it in some ways it occasionally has an old radio quality,
Yep.
and I like that. I think that's really cool. So yeah.
It reminds me of the old shadow radio programs with Orson Welles.
Well, it kind of made me wonder if anybody at Big Finish at some point had watched this and thought, "Hey, that's a good idea." But I think really just the idea of doing audio shows makes sense. So, that's no doubt where it came from.
Big Finish watched this episode and it inspired them. We'll just
That's
say
a
that.
fun idea.
Why
That's
not?
a fun idea. Why not?
What's your favorite scene? We'll say in this episode.
I won't say I have a favorite scene, but I have a favorite theme.
Go ahead.
And the theme I really like in this episode is what an incredible detective Morgan has become.
Yeah.
And how he's teaming up with other characters to solve this big mystery, and that Catherine's priorities are elsewhere, partly because she's not a Collins. I don't know. Not in the same way, and partly because she's expecting.
Yeah. I really love Keith Prentice in this episode. You're right. He really takes. There's just episodes where Keith Prentice as Morgan Collins takes over, and I don't mean that in just his voice. I mean just as his character. He really takes over the episode in a very intelligent, characteristic way, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really well done. Where he's trying to put the pieces together with James Forsythe, and he does that in this episode again with the help of Carrie Stokes,
Mm-hmm.
who's been a big central character for this story right now.
How refreshing, I mean, every time Kathy Cody's in an episode, my regard for her really goes up. She's really, I think, I said this before, she's just come a long way.
Yeah, I really this character is a way better fit for her because she gets to show off her acting skill and her pure talent. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a sucker for a good damsel, but there's too much. There's such a thing as too much of a damsel in distress too.
Yeah.
And Carrie Stokes is not a damsel in distress. She's somebody who has importance because of her psychic ability. And I like the fact that they've chosen her over Gerard Stiles for this role. She's more sympathetic than what Gerard was early on in these episodes.
Very
She's
much
not
so.
in it. She's not in it for the money, like Gerard Stiles is in this arc.
Mm-hmm.
She's in it for the right reasons, the truth. She wants to help the Collins family. Now her father is going to be against this, which I like.
Sure. It gives Thayer something to do.
Right, you got to have the other side of the coin. The yin and the yang. So she's willing to help them, and he's not willing to let her help them because he doesn't want her to get involved. And
Yes.
she's already heavily involved, which is
Yeah.
great.
I mean, she can't handle the truth.
Absolutely, she can too. And I like this episode too in the beginning where she sees Daphne's grave and she tries to hide it, and Daphne pressures her on it. She goes, you're not a liar. You're not a good liar." And I love that line. Even with the photos, it really pays it off because I love the photo they use of the character of Daphne with the eyebrows. You see her, they're sort of like raised a bit, and her eyes are open, wide open. And so I love that aspect. And she tells her the truth. She goes, it's your grave I saw. So she confronts Carrie about the truth, and Carrie tells it to her.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's my. I agree with you about Morgan. He has become a great detective, but I really also love Catherine in this episode because for all the wanting to stop her sister from getting married, the we kept waiting for the other shoe to drop in this arc. It dropped in this episode with the baby.
Yeah, big time. So that is a huge moment for Dark Shadows. That's a big moment for TV. Yeah. That's a big moment for Dark Shadows. How do you think they handled it?
I think they handled it very, very well, despite this episode being lost, because it's not as lost as it appears to be.
No.
Again, I'm not saying that the film is all there. It's not. But for what it is, for the lost episode that it is, it's a very, very well put together lost episode. And
I agree.
And the people who put it together deserve a lot of credit, because they just did a hell of a job of putting the photos with the dialogue, and it all clicks too. There's a bit of a hesitation for the flip over, and I think that's probably why you have Laura doing the introductions.
Wait, what do you mean by the flip over?
Like there's times when Laura does an introduction, she does so far of an introduction that the previous scene she just talked about, like she ends, there's a sequence where she ends it on talking about Morgan and Catherine.
Yes.
Being in the drawing room. Well, that's not where it starts off at. It starts off with
I see what you mean.
With another scene that she first mentioned previously. Okay. And again, that's not her fault. It's still well done. Mm-hmm. But she's trying to narrate it a little too far, but I get why. I get why she does it.
Okay.
It's still well done, and it's very well put together. I love the fact that Keith Prentice, and I give you credit too, you're right. He is becoming the star of Dark Shadows in every way, shape, and form.
He's really good. I mean, it's a heightened, is what we call in theater a heightened performance, which is a polite way of saying not incredibly realistic. But okay, well, who cares? I mean, does it have a sense of truth to it? Do you get involved in the story when he's on camera? And yeah, you do.
Yes. Yeah, buddy. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. What's going on back there?
My son was asking me a question.
Oh, all right. Now, young Master Saints, do you need my input on this? No. Your Uncle Patrick is here. Strange Uncle Patrick.
Oh, my God.
The term for uncle-like, by the way, young Master Saints, is avuncular. That's your word of the day.
Go ahead. What were you saying? I'm sorry.
I'm Uncle Buck. Listen, hey, do you not oh, never mind. Anyway. So what on earth were we talking about? I don't even remember now.
Keith Prentice.
Keith Prentice is he's true. Yeah. There's a sense of truth to what he is doing, and that as much as anything, I think really makes this work. So for that reason alone, I'm really grateful. And it's we keep coming back to what would this have been like if Keith Prentice had, been able to go on and do his thing. It's very hard to tell.
I think he would have been fabulous. He really, and I know we're not there yet, but once we get to the James Forsythe thing, I'll say this to anybody who watches this. Don't wait for me and Patrick. Jump ahead and go watch those episodes, because he's really great as Morgan. I'm not saying he isn't. He's great as Morgan, but as James Forsythe, he really steals 1841.
He does. He does. And that's I'm really, we keep talking about it. I'm really looking forward to that.
I am too.
It's taking a long time to get there.
The host decided to do this by episode.
Oh, it's okay. It's not you. It's the show.
Yeah.
I swear, honey, it's the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you my favorite photo they use. I love when they're in the drawing room and they use a photo of Keith is standing there with his back turned and Catherine's sort of looking at him. Laura Parker's character is looking at really great photo usage on this episode. I mean, they do not miss a beat with the photos and the voiceovers. Really, again, to the crew, you all.
Yeah, I think so specifically that those kudos probably go to Mr. Jim Pearson.
Yep.
I think Jim is the guy who really spent, I think, most of the early 90s kind of at the MTI mines putting this stuff together.
Yeah. To Jim Pearson, if you're listening, great job, dude. Great job.
You know who Jim is, right?
Yeah, I've seen him do interviews and stuff and be at the cons and stuff.
He truly is Mr. Dark Shadows. I accidentally hit him in the mouth with a microphone. That was my introduction to him. I was horrified. He was speaking at the 2014 convention. I was passing in front. I thought the crowd was packed. It was in a tent outside. And I thought, well, I'll pass in front of the stage. Somehow it made more sense to get back to my seat to take this crazy circuitous route. And there's a thing on a microphone called a boom arm. Yeah. And it's like a T. So Jim's mic was on a boom arm that somehow stuck way out from the stage. And I couldn't see it. And I was passing by. God, I was trying to be inconspicuous. And I heard this boom. And Mr. Pearson reacted exactly the way you would react if you got hit in the mouth with a microphone. I think he said, "Hey, buddy, what's your problem?" I was like, "Oh, my God, I'm so sorry." And so I spent the next couple of days just trying to stay out of his way. Yeah. And it was inevitably like I had a bogey on my 6. Wherever I would be going was accidentally in the direction he was trying to get in. Yeah. And so I was always in the way. And no matter how I bobbed and weaved, there was Jim. Lovely man.
I really like how this episode ends with the cliffhanger of Catherine telling Bramwell, "I am pregnant with your child." Just they really, even though it's a photo, they really sell the emotion at the end, and it's really well done.
I agree. This is truly one of the first of these 1841 parallel time episodes that has me wanting to go back and see more of what's going to happen here. Yeah. In fact, I would just like to see it all. Hang on. Due to all these technical problems, I've had to change my Wi-Fi around, which, because I'm in the 21st century, has affected all my lights. Maybe that's better. Okay, good. No longer do I feel like I'm trying out for Daredevil. Okay, great.
I really like the fact that with all the photos they use, Jim Pearson picked really good photos too. Like putting this together. It just, for a lost episode, it's great.
It's really good. It's really good. So doing the math, how many more do we have?
So we were at 1,119. Mm-hmm. Let's see, episode 1,240. 50, what, 54?
This was 18. We got, technically there are 1,225 episodes. It ends, though, I think, on 1,245.
Yes. 1,245, yep.
Okay. So, but I don't really know because some of those have to be left out, I think. In terms of just, there was an Apollo launch or something like that. And because, that's the reason for the double episodes and the triple episodes.
Yeah, some of the earlier episodes of this arc, there are back-to-back episodes. But I don't think after this, I don't think there's any, if I'm correct, I don't think there's any more back-to-back episodes.
Okay.
I don't believe there is, because next is 1,120, which is going to be really good. I can't wait to talk to that with you. What's
just because of the, now what do you know that I don't know or that I've forgotten?
Well, just the fact that we've covered the Lost episode, which is really good. These episodes have just been really great. Like going through them, like, I know, because with the Coffin box set, like, and you own it too, the Coffin box set, even if you're a Dark Shadows fan, can be a lot to go through. And this. Even if you watch Dark Shadows on stream, it could be a lot to go through.
It is a huge ordeal. I mean, do you remember when you first saw the Coffin box?
Yes, I first saw it when my wife got it for me for Christmas a couple years ago. And listen,
did you know it existed prior to that?
Yeah, I knew it existed. I had been begging for it for a while. And my wife, like, she goes, I got you something for Christmas. I'm not telling you what it is. I said, okay. And I wasn't even thinking she's going to get me, because it had been a while since I'd mentioned it to her. So Christmas morning, there's this big thing in front of me. I'm like, what the hell is this? And I open it, and it's my eyes went big. My wife took a picture of me because my mouth was on the floor.
I had seen it, online, and so I bought it, even though I had a shelf full of all of the MTI, individual DVD sets that I had, saved up my money for over the years, and really was very proud of collecting. And when this thing, and I thought it was one of these things where I told myself, oh, there's no way I'm going to waste money on this. And because I already had them, and of course I did. And Jewel, I got to tell you, in that golden era of box sets,
yes,
that I think began with the MASH box set, which was the first major TV series I remember having all at once. And it was a thing of beauty. It came with a little clipboard, big canvas box. This was truly awe-inspiring.
Yeah,
It just was. I thought, my God, what have they done? They turned death into a fighting chance to live, and and those are things that as much as because we were in the prior incarnation of this, we were talking, because we tried recording this once before, and there's some sort of Skype disaster. We were talking about the Burton movie, and I can't speak for Wallace, because Wallace started, I think, in November of 2011. So he started just before. But I really think that a lot of this Dark Shadows kind of renaissance that we are at, I think we're at an interesting point at, we can thank that movie for.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea. I know I wouldn't be involved in this, and I don't know about other people. Maybe not. I don't know.
I remember when the movie was announced, like first announced, and Johnny Depp was attached to it, and I remember how excited I was. Like, I was jumping around telling people, there's going to be a Dark Shadows movie, there's going to be a Dark Shadows movie. Like, I drove my family nuts about it. And I think what the credit the movie really should get, and it should, is that it brought a whole new audience to Dark Shadows.
It did.
It brought a younger audience to Dark Shadows. I mean, there are people who it's funny. Somebody had asked me, "Well, what's Dark Shadows?" I know who Johnny Depp is, and of course, you're going to tell. It's like, so I tell them, and I told them all of it, and it's just like they're like, and they're going to fit all that into a movie. I'm like, no, not all of it, but
Sure. So was it the Super Bowl where you had your first? That's where I really got my first inkling of what we were in store for.
I saw the trailer on the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Okay.
That's where the trailer I first saw the trailer, and
Oh,
I knew
what did you make of?
I went, that's a little odd, but it's here's when I knew when we were in trouble, and it wasn't the trailer. It was prior to that. Because you know this as well as I do. Dark Shadows never really did celebrity. They never, it's not like they took a celebrity and brought him on as a guest.
No, they never did.
So that a friend of mine who was helping me keep track of who they cast, they had just cast Helen Bonham Carter. And I thought, I mean, the cast was already loaded at this point. I'm thinking, oh wow, they got a great cast. My friend comes up to me at a store, and he goes, "Hey, did you hear who they just cast?" I said, "No, who did they cast?" He said, "They cast Alice Cooper." And at first I was excited. I said, "Oh, as Barnabas's dad." Because that
would have been, and Alice Cooper would have enjoyed doing that.
Right. That's my thought of, if I'm casting Alice Cooper, that's the role I'm putting him at. And he goes, no, that he's playing himself. And I'm like, oh shit. And I knew then.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who had really tried to defend the early Entertainment Weekly pictures and things like that. And he after the Super Bowl ad aired, he absolutely refused to see the movie, and he had been the most enthusiastic about it. And his exact words were, "Well, I wanted to see a Dark Shadows movie, not Austin Powers 4." And yet, Jewel, I got to tell you, he had a point.
Yeah, he did.
So, but it will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. It's nice that Hollywood, the statute of limitations has finally sort of run out on people being polite to Mr. Burton and Mr. Depp. Yeah. That there was a, I know I would hear occasionally from people, "Oh, well, I mean, why are people so upset? It's just a movie," and so on and so forth. It's like, well, yeah, I guess. But I have to say, I mean, I'm not a big one for getting into a lot of negativity. A little bit can be fun. But I remember when Mark Perry gave me the introduction to the book, and he called them out.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my, we have a champion. And it's sort of like, it's official. It's okay to not like the movie. I mean, I know that there are these young people out there who really like the film. And, as I've said before, one of my big issues with it is that is not that it's a comedy. I call, in the daybook, I call Dark Shadows a sitcom all the time. It's that it's an unfunny comedy. It's that it's not successful at that. And that's the thing that really gets me. And when I hear these kids ooh and ah over it, it's like, guys, they're better. There are better movies that do that. But if you also, if someone enjoyed something where I didn't, that means they have 2 hours of their life they're never going to get back to spend on something they dislike. They're always going to have that cool, good 2 hours where I didn't. And I can't envy them for that. I just have to congratulate them.
Yeah. here's my biggest thing with film, and it's this. It's the films I hate the most are the films that can't decide what the hell they want to be.
Okay.
And that's Tim Burton's Dark Shadows. It can't decide what it wants to be. It can't decide whether it wants to be funny or wants to be serious. And it seems to conflict with what it wants to be all through the film. And I pointed this out with Halloween 2018. My biggest issue is not that they didn't do the sister connection. Hell, Danny McBride even said, we're not doing the sister connection. Okay, great. Then why bother to even give Laurie Strode a daughter and a granddaughter?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, there's like Dr. Loomis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does Dr. Loomis have a family? We don't know. But even if he did, so what? They're not a part of the Halloween franchise. They're not part of the.
They're not. They're probably glad to have him out of the house.
And really, when you look at Laurie's father in the original Halloween, it's like, so what? It's not like he's a key focus of the story. The only real time he matters is the fact that he's selling the Myers house. And it's like, we all know no one's buying that goddamn house.
Yeah. What relation does Laurie's adopted family have to Michael? Any?
None, really. When you get into the sister connection, the Strodes are the ones who adopted Laurie. That's it.
Okay.
So they're not related to Michael by bloodline. Now, in Halloween 6, one of my favorite Halloween movies, and I'm glad I got to interview Daniel Farrens, who wrote the movie, but the Strodes, the brother of Laurie's dad, his family moves into the Myers house.
Okay.
And simply because they weren't able to ever sell the house to anybody, which makes sense. And John Strode is his name, and John Strode is he's a domestic abuser. And because I was talking to Daniel Farrens about this, how Kara Strode I related to Kara Strode very much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my favorite female protagonist. I mean, she really stood up for herself and her son, even though she had nowhere to go. But it's a really, again, the Strodes themselves have no real relation to Michael. The only connection they have, not necessarily to Michael, is to Laurie, because they adopted Laurie. But here's the thing: in Halloween 4, the Carruthers family adopt Laurie's daughter, Jamie Lloyd.
Okay.
So, but they only one at the end of Halloween 4, Jamie Lloyd stabs her stepmother with scissors.
Okay.
And in Halloween 5, you find out that she did not kill her, that her stepmother's alive, because Rachel Carruthers makes mention of her father and her mother both being alive.
So, I am not that well versed in Halloweenianism, because a lot of those sequels came out at a time when I was busy working in a movie theater, but it wasn't a movie theater that was showing those films. Yeah. So, which ones count? Okay. Where does someone begin?
Start with the original. Okay.
Sure.
If you're going the sister connection, Halloween 2.
Okay.
Halloween 4, Halloween 5, and Halloween 6, because
2, 4, 5, and 6.
Now, because here's the thing: the Jamie Lloyd story ends after 6. Halloween H2O, which is the brother sister connection as well, does not connect 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
It time jumps. It only acknowledges the first 2 movies, and Jamie Lee Curtis makes her return in that movie, obviously. By the way, it was some favorite things for H2O. The guy who voiced Jet in one of my favorite animes, Cowboy Bebop, he's the African American detective who walks in the room Loomis's room when they're looking at Loomis's room. So it's cool that he's in that movie. Not for very long, but he's in there.
How would Professor Stokes have fared against Michael Myers had he been the one to hunt him? I'm sure you've talked about this.
He would have handed Michael his ass. He would have. I think Stokes would have aimed for the head with a gun.
Okay.
Loomis doesn't. That's Loomis's. Loomis is trying to kill this. You know, we hear the words immovable force, immovable object, and that's what basically Michael Myers is and Loomis is at the same time.
Okay.
Because you have two people, you have one person hunting this force, this evil that this man is, Michael is, no matter what. I think with Stokes wouldn't have. I'm not saying Loomis played around with him, but when you compare it to what Stokes would have done, he probably did.
Okay. Would Stokes have employed some sort of black magic or something like that? Because isn't there like a supernatural force going on here?
Well, if you watch there's two versions of a lot of these films.
Okay.
There's two versions of Halloween 6. There's the theatrical cut and there's the producer's cut. I recommend both.
Okay.
The producer's cut has where Tommy Doyle dresses up like one of the druids and he uses these stones and this circle to stop Michael.
Okay.
Which is really, really neat. Which again, Daniel Farrens loves the producer's cut. Shout out to him. But I prefer the theatrical version. Again, I'm a sucker. That's the version I saw though first. So
okay.
I love the producer's cut. The producer's cut has a lot more stalking though. I'll give it that. I love that. But Halloween 6 has two versions. Watch if you can get your hands on the producer's cut. I think it's on Amazon. It's really, really good.
Okay. Now, okay. So now, of these newer movies, do any of them count? Because I wasn't really big on the one that I saw in the theaters.
Okay, Halloween. Now, this trilogy is not the sister connection at all. It only acknowledges the first movie.
Okay.
Which is my complaint of, well, why does Laurie even have a family? Why bother?
Yeah.
But it time jumps 40 years. Laurie Strode is dealing with PTSD because she survived an event.
Oh, I saw it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's what it's going off of. It's just going off the original. All three films are. Which again, when you get to Halloween Ends, is really, really weird. Because Danny McBride did an interview where he said they're going to keep Michael Myers grounded in reality, and I think reality went out the window in Halloween Kills.
Why? Because that I don't think that now that was the second of these McBride things, right?
Right, because in Halloween Kills he gets shot, he gets stabbed. I'm talking Michael Myers here.
Yeah.
And I mean, he gets shot in the abdomen and chest. He gets stabbed. He gets beaten up with a baseball bat. He gets mugged by a mob, pretty much. And it's like somehow he still gets back up and kills them all. And it's like, how?
That's a lot. So it even sort of got to you. And you're big on these things.
Again, when you're trying to say the character isn't supernatural, when you're trying to stay logical to the character, I understand that. But at the same time, the character in question took 6 slugs in the original and got up and walked away.
Sure.
I gave a suggestion. If you really want to still have him be somewhat human, have a blood trail where he's bleeding from the bullet wounds.
That would have been nice because the thing that got to me about the first of the McBride movies, which is where I got off the train, um, was his unstoppability. You know, I kept hearing or thinking that this was going to be a little bit more, I don't know, I don't want to use the term realistic. I hate that term, but you know, it was going to maybe we know more about making movies now, and audiences are a little savvier in terms of what the dramatic stakes are. And and after a while, I've said this before, the only thing that would kill him was the running time.
Yeah.
You know, I knew that he would do something, and Laurie would do something, and he would do something, and Laurie would do something, and it's like, can I just go and get a you know, a summary in the lobby, and maybe come back for the big kill? Um, that really got really got to me.
Yeah, and I hate the fact there's not really any stalking in these movies, in the first two movies. I
I
do
mean,
wish you would have seen. For me, stalking is over Michael's shoulder. You hear him breathing, you see him watching somebody, and he follows that person, and
yeah.
he's slowly stalking that person or persons, and we just don't get that, and that's something I really miss in these
Well,
movies.
do you think that's part of the essential ritual to those films?
Yeah, because go look at the first movie,
I see them
then
times.
then watch some of the second. There is stalking in it. Four, there's not too much stalking. Five, there's a good bit, and then there's six, which there's the theatrical version has some, but the producer's cut has a lot more. And in H2O, there is a lot of stalking because he stalks Merrington Whittington, and he's sort of somewhat which gives you the idea that he's also watching her neighbors, and then he's slowly stalking Laurie Strode when he gets to Summer Glen, California.
How does he get away with? I mean, isn't he a little conspicuous? Does he, like? I mean, does he wear like different colored jumpsuits occasionally to throw them off? Like, oh, today it's a beige one. You didn't
No,
see that coming, Loomis, did you?
here's the thing too. There's something in Halloween H2O that I love, and I've talked about this. It's Sam Loomis's deduction board. Sam is using a deduction board of clues to try to find Michael, to pinpoint where he might be. Loomis
Okay.
believed, you get the impression from H2O, at least I do, that Loomis believed sometime after the hospital explosion, Michael was out there somewhere killing, and he could not, because it mentions other states, but we don't see it. Again, I wish we would have, but it's something that I really love about this movie. I sort of wish he would have given the deduction board to somebody before he died, but he doesn't. He just leaves it there in his room. And I get this is part of the storyboard the writers were, Steve Miner and the writers were using,
Mm-hmm.
but I really love that deduction board.
It tied the room together.
It really did. It did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we talked about Dark Shadows. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed hearing about this. There are you know, big blind spots, or not blind spots. There are well, I guess blind spots. There are just a lot of things I still have yet to learn about horror, because there's so much of it, and so it's always fun to get a primer.
Yeah, listen. My favorite horror movie franchise is Halloween. I love it to death.
I know that.
I'll always watch it, even if I don't like the movie. But my thing of it is, look, if you're going to be different, I would. If you're really going to be different, if you're not going to have the sister connection, then don't.
Make up your mind, in other
You're
words.
right. Just it's funny. There's a rumor out there going that they might do a Halloween series going off McBride, the McBride trilogy. I said, okay, great. Then do the anthology series and have it be random events that happen on Halloween. Set it in California. Hell, use the California wildfires and say it's an arsonist.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to use stuff from ripped from the headlines, because Hitchcock did that shit beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Um, again, there's a lot of things you could use. Have her team up with a character sort of that's like a Carl Kolchak, where there's this reporter who's investigating the events. And does Allison investigate the events? She doesn't try to, but something keeps pulling her to these events. And that's where you can get into the whole fate thing all over again.
That's a great idea. It's a show I would watch. I think I'll tell you the other way that you could go about it. And this might be sacrilege to some, a dream to some, a nightmare to others. But I love what Hammer did when he wore those pants. No, I love what Hammer did when they took on their Frankenstein and they made it about Frankenstein, not about the creature.
Yeah.
And you could, why not make this about Loomis?
Yeah.
And that Loomis is hunting down, new connected Michael Myers-esque figures. And maybe Michael reemerges every once in a while, but he finds out this is a pattern.
Did you hear my interview with Daniel Ferrens?
No.
I asked him about are we ever going to get a series about Dr. Loomis? And he says, I hope so, because what they want to do is like a prequel of young Sam Loomis. Which would, and then go from there, which would be really cool because, again, we don't know a lot about him.
I guess. I kind of, can I be honest? I feel cheated sometimes by these things. I mean, I know I'm not, on one hand, okay, yeah, great. They're not going to get the movie actor for a lot of reasons here. Malcolm McDowell's busy. But seriously, they're not going to get the movie actor. Okay, we know that. And you don't want a really awful knockoff that's just going to make you, go, oh boy, why can't you just get the real thing in here? At the same time, this goes back to Anakin. Maybe I don't want to, see I was brought the mature one. Right. It's like I come, oh, hey, you like this hamburger at McDonald's? Yeah, I love it. Well, let's introduce you to the calf.
I got you.
Yeah, it's like I don't want the calf. I want the dead cow ground up on some bread in front of me.
Yeah. It's the prequel. I said this about Revenge of the Sith. Like, listen, I know he's becoming Darth Vader. Okay. My most interesting thing about the prequels is I always said that even if he hadn't become a Sith, I do think there's a Jedi Civil War coming, which would have been interesting. No way to go.
Now, wait, when did Michael Myers become a Sith?
Well, no, I'm talking about
I'm teasing him.
This is Star Wars.
Yeah.
Well, he's as evil as a Sith, that's for sure.
I would have loved to have seen that movie.
Yeah, me too.
Great movie.
Oh my god!
All right, what else? We got anything else? How about that Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea? Hell of a show.
Yeah, actually, it is. What's your favorite classic horror movie? You got one?
How are you defining classic?
I mean, classic, old school, 30s, 40s, whatever you want to say.
Okay, way back then.
Way back.
Easily. So we're talking, because there's so many good ones. So are we talking pre-war?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest movies ever made. It is the greatest horror movie ever made, not in that it is the scariest. It is the greatest movie that is in the horror genre. I think it's a giant work of just incredible humanity. And I dearly love it. It's infinitely rewatchable. It's very funny. I get something new out of it every single time. It's everything a movie should be.
It is. Great movie, by the way. I own it on Blu-ray. Really, really great movie. I think my favorite all-time classic horror movie.
Yeah,
I know some people might not consider it horror, but I love Cat People. Really, really well done. I love the suspense of it, the way it's shot, the way it's acted. I love the sound of it. I love the sound. I love how they use the sound of cats and the trees and all that. Really well done.
Is that your favorite Val Lewton movie?
It is. Now here's the thing: I've seen Isle of the Dead and I've seen Body Snatcher. Great movies. Great.
Body Snatcher's terrific.
Great movies. But there's just now. I Walked with a Zombie is really underrated to me. Does not get enough love, but I really enjoyed Cat People. I wish they had done the sequel a lot better, but the original really holds up well. I told my wife's friend is really young, and I said, "Have you ever seen Cat People?" And she goes, "No." I said, "You need to."
And she came back and talked about Malcolm McDowell.
No, she told me, she goes, "I don't watch black and white movies."
Oh God, that one. That one. Guys, please stop it. There are so many boring movies in color. Ask one of these people who says that. Okay, so you don't like it because they're boring. I got it. Then you got to distract them a little bit with other conversation. Then later you say, "Hey, what are some of the most boring movies you've seen?" And they'll probably mention recent movies. And you say, all of those were in color.
Yeah.
That didn't help them.
No.
Where's your delivery now, Moses?
It's not what the film's shot in, it's how the film's written and performed. And those older movies hold up so well. Again, not a horror movie, but a really great movie. The Third Man. I mean, really just an amazing movie.
That's a great movie.
But again, trying to convince the younger generation, because here's the thing, I watch a lot of black and white films because I own a lot of them. And my wife goes, what old movie are you watching tonight, old man? I tell my wife which one. She goes, okay. She'll sit there and watch it with me. And her friend called the one night and we were watching Cat People. And she's like, how can you sit there and watch that? She goes, it's a good movie.
Get this a lot. That's yeah. I think if I knew people, I would get that also. People. But I'll tell you what. There is a wonderful old movie that I forget. It's one of these movies I forget about, and then I watch it again, and God, it's good. Jewel, you can find it on YouTube very easily. It's called Once Upon a Time. It stars Cary Grant. It's by Norman Corwin, who was basically like the Mark Twain of radio. He's the greatest radio writer ever.
Yeah.
And he lived forever. Great, wonderful writing teacher as well. And it's a fantasy movie. And it's about a caterpillar.
Ooh.
But you never see the caterpillar. Trust me, it's really good.
See, now Gary, there's a lot of good psychological, like Meet John Doe. Have you ever seen that? With I think
sure.
Great.
Wait, did I say Gary Cooper?
Yeah, Gary Cooper.
Oh, I meant Cary Grant.
Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck are in Meet John Doe.
Oh yeah, Barbara Stanwyck is quite memorable in that movie.
Yeah, beautiful actress. And plays a hell of a femme fatale in other movies, by the way.
Yes.
But with Cary Grant, he plays. There's another movie where he plays a ghost of, I forget what it's called. It's in black and white, but it's really, really good. If you've ever, I forget the name of it offhand.
It's not Topper, is it? Topper?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Topper, yeah.
Yeah, great movie. Really good. Really, really good.
Yeah.
It's a fun watch. Is there anything you want to add about Dark Shadows before we go?
No, I've enjoyed this. It's been sort of all over the map, but why not?
Well, the lost episode of Dark Shadows, 1,219 guys. You definitely need to go check it out. Really good episode. And go pick up the Dark Shadows Daybook Abound. Link will be in the description box.
Joel, when are we talking about the next one? When do you want to try? I want to find out about this pregnancy.
Okay. How's tomorrow night? Or no, Tuesday night. Sorry.
Tuesday night's wonderful.
Okay, because I got a podcast tomorrow night about Friday the 13th. But Tuesday night, I will see you, sir. And we will do that. We'll do 1,220, which is going to be awesome. Patrick, my friend, have a great night.
You too, Joel. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.